Hi, my name is Maria Minsker and I'm an associate editor at CRM Magazine. With me today is Ben Parr, author of his new book, Captivology. Thanks for joining us today, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
So before we get started, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and where the idea for the book came from.
And so, my original claim to fame was I was co-editor and editor-at-large of the tech site Mashable and helped run West Coast for 3.5 years. But ever since then, I've switched over. I've been investing in startups. And what happened while I was investing in startups was these startups asked me for help, but in a very specific area, attention, on how to get press, on marketing and go-to-market strategy, customer and user acquisition, virality, how to work with celebrities. All these areas really fall around attention, how you capture it. And as I did research into that area, I just became fascinated. And I've had book offers over the years, but this was the first time it was like, I had to just write this.
So what are some of the fundamentals of attention getting? How can brands and companies keep customers interested and get them coming back?
So in the book, I discuss 7 key psychological triggers, what I call captivation triggers, for capturing attention across all stages. And for brands, for example, the first stage is you have to get their attention first. And so one of the triggers I discuss is a trigger I call the disruption trigger. It's that you have to violate people's expectations. And there's some science behind this that shows that if you violate people's expectations, they will pay attention because they need to figure out, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And so one brand that did a good job of that is Patagonia. They created a campaign a few years ago called Don't Buy This Jacket. And they're a clothing company. You're not supposed to tell people not to buy your specific clothing, to buy your product. But the campaign went into, how they wanted to repair your clothing. If it was not working, they were about the environment. They didn't want to replace it unless you were ready. And funny enough, that campaign more than doubled their sales in the next year or two. And so you got to start by violating their expectations. But I go through all these different triggers to capture attention over the long term, starting from just getting attention to keeping attention. And I use a trigger called the acknowledgement trigger that describes, how we build relationships with specific brands. And these are all important aspects of capturing attention for a brand or anybody.
So tell me a little bit about the automaticity trigger.
Automaticity is the first trigger. And what it essentially boils down to is that we have some immediate and reactionary subconscious reactions to certain sounds, sights, and other sensory stimuli. For example, if you're a hitchhiker on the side of the road, and there was literally a French scientist that did this study, red is probably the best color to wear to get attention because it has high contrast with the ground and the green grass, but it also, more importantly, has romantic associations. They found that if a woman wore a red shirt, she would be picked up by drivers by 21% of the time versus 11% of the time. And these unconscious romantic associations with red capture attention. But there's other contexts in which other colors capture attention. Blues and teals are highly correlated with competence, part of the reason why my book has blue and teal. But orange is the least correlated, orange and yellow. And so if think about it, if someone came into your office with a yellow suit, you'd kick them immediately out. But there's a scientific reason why. And so automaticity is just about this subconscious reaction and thinking about how are people going to react to your symbols, to your colors, to the sounds, anything that's related to your brand.
So how can brands incorporate this in a more, day-to-day way? I mean, they can't make all their campaigns in red, for example, or, that doesn't quite fit.
They just have to know what they have to know what kind of message they want to get across, Are they trying for more luxury?
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S., black is a great color for luxury. Or are they trying for more nature or more natural? Green's a great color. Or ruggedness is brown, depending on the color and the culture as well. But it's also just being able to look at a symbol and be able to say what associations you want to have with that symbol, or even like a jingle, what kind of associations you want people to have with it. So it's just that thinking of, does this contrast well with the surroundings and make it pop out? And does this give the right message in terms of our subconscious associations?
You mentioned that there are 3 stages of attention, that immediate stage, short-term, and more long-term attention. So how do these triggers play into those stages? Is there a way that each of these could work for each of the stages? Are there some that are better suited for one or the other? How do they sort of fit into that?
You're right. There are 3 stages of attention in my model: immediate, short, and long. And the big thing is that the captivation triggers, some work better for some stages of attention versus others. Automaticity trigger, for example, is very much an immediate attention trigger, while disruption trigger is great for capturing short attention by violating people's expectations. On the other hand, if you want long-term attention, long attention, the mystery trigger and the acknowledgement trigger are great tools for capturing that. But you got to go through each of those stages, and that's kind of why I put those triggers in that order, because it goes through a chronological process over time.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I think this is really, really helpful for our readers.
Thank you for having me.